Hey friends, the Powwow guy here. Just want to make a little video as a response to a message I got. I got the message the other day, but I've been kind of feeling under the weather these past few days. But today I feel fine enough to kind of respond to this. The individual who wrote this email to me, they only identified themselves as Sparkler111. So to shorten that a bit, I'm going to call you Mr. Sparky. So Mr. Sparky writes, couple of choice things, but basically he, she, they are saying that powwow is bullshit. Their word, not mine. The spells in the powwow books are ridiculous. They have no meaning, written by illiterate bumpkins, blah, blah, blah. It's a joke. Your stuff is a joke, basically. Okay, so this person doesn't like me for whatever reason, doesn't like powwow, and thought to vent their anger on me. So, Mr. Sparky, I'm sorry you feel that way. On one level, I can understand that, on the surface, powwow does kind of look a little silly, doesn't it? You look at the charms and you think, what is this nonsense, right? But I also understand your writing comes from a place of ignorance, lack of education, lack of understanding of esoteric principles and concepts and subjects. So perhaps the study of magic, if that's your intention, is not for you, Mr. Sparky, because you clearly don't understand that when it comes to magic, when it comes to folk magic, things are pretty much never as they seem. Right? I'm going to kind of break my own personal code here for a moment, and I'm going to share a secret. One powwow secret that I've never shared with anybody before. Not even people that I've helped learn powwow. So this is something I'm going to put out there. I have researched many of these charms for years. I have taken them apart and tried to find the symbolism and all the elements to them, and you would not believe what I've come up with some of these. So they're not just like random words that are taken out of biblical context, that happen to have something related to an illness or whatever. Maybe they seem that way, but they're actually very much more powerful than you think. So now, not all of the charms that I have dissected in this way have been successfully translated into more esoteric, powerful principles, but several have. And the ones that have, and now that I know what they really mean and know what they really do, my success rate has skyrocketed with my powwow. So I'm going to share just one with you. The rest are for you guys to figure out on your own, because I did all this work for years, often like with other powwowers and people in the academic community like scoffing at me and such. So this stuff I'm keeping for myself. But I'm going to share this one thing, just so Mr. Sparky understands that there is so much more to powwow than just like, whatever nonsense you think you see in the powwow books. So the first charm, the only charm I'm going to talk to you about, and this is a really good example because the concepts spoken about in this charm are probably some of the most misinterpreted and misunderstood in the powwow tradition, especially insofar as being picked up by neo-pagans. Very simple charm. A remedy against worms in man or beast. Mary the Holy went over the land. She had 3 worms in her hand. One was white, another black, and the third was red. Stroke the person or animal you would benefit. At each repetition, strike him on the back, the first time once, the second time twice, the third time thrice, and set a time for the worms, but not less than 3 minutes. That's all you get. That's all they tell you. Okay? Now, there are a lot, especially when I first started learning about powwow, it was coming from a neo-pagan's perspective. So they were all about, white, black, and red are the powwow colors. You need 3 candles, a white one, a black one, and a red one. That's what this means. So you should burn these candles or intertwine these colored strings. Or what they're really talking about is some Norse, Odin or some nonsense, cutting webs and strings of fate and destiny and past, present, future. No. Forget all that. Put that aside, all right? Let's talk a little bit about this charm. Mary the Holy went over the land. We can assume they're talking about Mary, the mother of Christ. A lot of people named Mary in biblical times. Maybe Mary Magdalene. Maybe she was deemed holy by Christ. We don't know. All we know is somebody named Mary, who was considered holy, went over the land, and she had 3 worms in her hand. Now, in these charms, you're going to find that worms were often used to indicate cancer of some type. They thought it was worms back then. Or, more often, especially when we're talking about these colors, when the colors are mentioned, worms were talking about various forms of infection, particularly on the skin, things that people could see, because they didn't really have any way of seeing types of infection within the body and assigning a color to them. So Patrick Dunmore kind of touches just a little bit on this, the use of color, in his 2012 translation of The Friend in Need, which was an early print of Holman's Long Lost Friend. But he mentions that worms were sometimes used for cancer, and the colors red, white, and black may have been different types of infections. I'll disagree with him. I might take it a little further, though, and suggest that the colors, white, black, and red, were various degrees of infection. So like an initial infection on your skin might be red, like itchy. You get an infection from poison ivy or whatever. A second stage of that might be white blisters, pus, that kind of thing. And the third, obviously, would be black, mortification streaks, blood poisoning. So on the surface, people think, you're just saying these colors. Mary's walking around with these colored worms in her hand. This charm actually suggests that Mary's not coming toward you. Just as Mary the Holy went over the land, she had 3 worms in her hand. So to me, that sounds like, not that you would visualize it, but the visual here is that Mary the Holy has already removed the infection and is carrying across the land. All right, she's not coming toward you with 3 worms to strike with them, because you already have the worms, according to the fact that you're using this charm on someone. So the visual if there would be a visual, is Mary is off. She's already taken the infection. She's carrying whatever kind of infection you have, she's got all of it. All possibilities in her hand. She's carrying them over the land. All right? So there we go. We've already given more depth to it. It has nothing to do with candle colors, nothing to do with strings being knotted or beads or Thor, and Zeus or whoever. Certainly not past, present, future, nothing like that. It's literally different stages of infection. However, there is another depth to these charms that you really need to understand, so you're not just like scoffing at Powwow all the time. Powwow has so much more power than you realize it does. And I'm going to share this a little bit with you. We do know from various sources that Powwow has both alchemical and Kabbalistic influences within the tradition. Now, this stuff did not come from a vacuum. This Powwow did not just jump into existence by some silly German immigrant just coming up with household remedies to try and make some money. No, stuff comes from hundreds of years in the making. So, and all sorts of sources like Kabbalistic influences, like the Egyptian, I can't think of what it's called right now, but when like the Egyptian Christians, also the medieval Catholicism. So all of these things kind of blended and coagulated into what would eventually become Powwow. And then a lot of nonsense got added over to it. As I think more common people picked it up, they were illiterate, and so they might add their own little home remedies to the writings. So there you have some that you're not going to find a whole lot of esoteric meaning to. You can discard those once you figure out which ones they are. But these other things have so much history and alchemical and esoteric, Kabbalistic meanings behind them. So we're going to take this charm again, and I'm going to read a little excerpt. First of all, author Mark Stavish, he's from Pennsylvania. He writes a lot about the Kabbalistic influence that he's uncovered in Powwow. So I would recommend you maybe get in touch with him for more information on the Kabbalistic stuff. There is, some evidence that decades ago people already knew there was Kabbalistic influence. Here's an excerpt from a book written in 1982 called The Amish by John Hostetler. John Hostetler devoted his life to bringing information about the Amish to the public. He wrote all about different aspects of Amish life. So in this book, oops, I lost it. here we go, from the Amish. An Anabaptist healer, meaning Amish or Mennonite, it is recorded, cured sprained ankles in the following manner. Between 11 and 12 o'clock at night, he came to the patient's bed, opened a book of spells, from which he read a few Kabbalistic formulas, while touching the injured foot from time to time with the tip of his outstretched hand as to form a cross. So when you're reading some of the source material for Powwow, like Long Lost Friend or whatever, you might say, how are these Kabbalistic? But I think the trick is that if you know something about the Kabbalah, you may recognize some of these Kabbalistic formulas and influences in these seemingly silly charms. So I wanted to get to the bottom of black, white, and red. And the first place I started was some Kabbalah stuff. Now, I know nothing about the Kabbalah. It just doesn't spark my interest. Every time I've tried to study it, I just kind of, it's not for me. But I started with a book I have here. This book was written in the 1700s, I think. It's Opus Magio Kabbalisticum, something. This is obviously a modern translation of the book. But I was looking through here, and I thought maybe the colors could have something to do with elements or metals. This book is all about, if you want to read about salt, sulfur, and mercury, and all of its esoteric principles and stuff, read this book. It's hard to get through. But anyway, reading that book didn't really yield any results, but it led me to this book. 3 books of occult philosophy. All right? The foundation book of Western occultism. And really this is, no matter what kind of Western occultism you practice, you're going to find something here that really kind of sparked that. So, looking through it, I found a section called Of Light Colors, Candles, and Lamps. Okay, this might yield some results. And in section 11 here, I found I'll show you it if you can see it. I don't know if you can see. You see that? See how colors have symbols, all right? So these colors refer to skin complexions based on the direct relationship between the elements and the bodily humors. The humors are hot and dry, hot and moist, cold and dry. But these symbols for these colors represent certain levels of skin complexion, skin color. So remember, I was saying that red could be the initial color of the infection, white could be a more advanced with pus and such, black is mortification streaks, advanced infection. Now, I just want to interject. There are variations of this charm that substitute the word black for the word brown. And at first you think, this creates an inconsistency, this creates a problem. Not so. Because according to the 3 books of occult philosophy, when it assigns alchemical symbols to these colors, the symbol for black is the same as the symbol for brown. So white, the alchemical symbol for white is an upside down triangle. Black and brown are the same, upside down triangle with a short line through it. And red is an upright triangle with a short line through it. So in alchemy, these symbols are often combined to create other symbols. So, these would all be stacked on top of each other to create some sort of magical formula, some sort of alchemical formula. And it's through those types of things where we get all the symbols for the astrology signs, the planets. So there you go. So same with the elements, same with colors. All of these things can be joined, the combining of certain elements and such to create something new. So when you're talking about these colors and the alchemical symbols for the colors, you're going to stack these on top of each other. Let me find out how to. So first you're going to start with white, which you see is, okay, white, we agree. Black and brown are the same shape, just with the line through it. So we're stacking it on top. Okay, you see that? White with the black on top, and now red. Red has a line at the bottom and a line here. The only place that matches up is here and here. Forgive my artwork. So you can see when you are using that charm, not only are you saying something nonsensical for all appearances, on another level, you're specifically addressing the 3 levels of infection. And on an even deeper level, you are conjuring this symbol of power. You are conjuring that there so the power of God transfers to your patient. If you could see this, this would appear probably as like blue silvery light over your patient after you say the charm 3 times. You are literally conjuring this symbol. God speaks through us through symbols, things we understand. It's often said that if we were to hear the voice of God or the language of God, it would drive us insane and our heads would blow up, we'd die, something like that. So therefore, when we speak to God and God speaks to us, it's through symbols of sympathy. It's through words and symbols that are understood on a higher level. So we are speaking, yeah, Mary went over the land, she has worms in her hand, they're red and white and black, and she's all over the place. That's for our benefit. Those words literally conjure the symbol, the hexagram, over your patient, and through that symbol, the power of God flows into your patient. That is the real power of power. That is what we are doing. We are literally calling on a symbol of power. Now, you would be amazed at what I found in several of these charms, what you are literally conjuring. I'm not going to share that information because that's mine. That's my work. It's my life's work. If my son doesn't want to carry it on when I die, I'm literally instructing him to bury my books with me. So there you go. I've shared a secret of Powwow, and understanding that Powwow is so much deeper and more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That's it. So Mr. Sparky, I'm sorry you don't understand this. Hopefully you understood my explanation, but you shouldn't be rude to people. It's not nice. Because there's no need to be rude to me. I'm a nice person. And I like to share information. Here I am, sharing, blah. So, all right, that's it, you guys. It's been a long video. Do what you will with this information. But hopefully this will inspire you to study those charms more. All right, learn the actual secrets of them. Powwow does work. Once you have an understanding of how the charms are, like what they're talking about, what they're actually conjuring, you're not just saying words, you're actually working power. These are words of power that create something powerful. My powwow is awesome since I started doing this. And yours can be too. So thanks for writing, Mr. Sparky. You guys, thanks for watching. Happy Saturday. And if I feel better tomorrow, I'll do a weekly update. But that's it. Mr. Phoenix out. Love you guys. God bless. And we'll talk soon.